may be some attempts of attacks. Optimism is cheaper than mainnet and Ethereum mainnet and all that, so people may have tried to bribe a bit more some other folks or whatever to vote. Um, who knows? We'll see. Or maybe it's just because this is our first round on a cheap chain. Maybe these are just regular numbers. Who we will just see. Um, cool.
Isaac,
That's
may
that.
I?
Yeah, sure.
On that, I noticed the data set we get, that's the output of the QF algo. We have a raw score field on there. I believe it's the Sybil score that is provided by Gitcoin. And so we can do some Sybil analysis on all the data that's coming in as it comes
Yeah,
in.
nice. That'd be great. We, as a feature round, we do have they do provide the analysis option, so it's up to us. But I think it'd be maybe we rely on them to make the analysis just for the sake of time. But it'd be good for us to understand it as well. Um, there's I don't know. We can chat about that on DM. Maybe we can set up a chat with the Gitcoin folks and we do the analysis together. I don't really
That's
know how that
great.
works.
I think if they're willing to provide analysis, we should take as much as we can get. And then also definitely make sure that we understand it and we have our sort of in-house strategy oriented towards that.
Yeah, can you just look at the screen that I'm sharing real quick? Because this one is a puzzle to me right here.
But can we maybe because
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
just afraid this is being recorded. That's I didn't
I'm
want to
having
share
trouble.
Fair enough. Good point.
If you want a screenshot in a DM, I'm on my mobile, so I wasn't able to jump screens anyways. But yeah, happy to chat about this more.
Yeah, it's
maybe
just interesting. Some of the numbers just kind of don't make sense to me when I look at the total contributions versus the share. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're an SME on the project, so any input we can get is going to be way richer than even data sets.
Yeah, maybe I add you Gideon to the call. We have YGG and I weekly, and we can probably check these
Yes.
a bit more privately. I just don't want to have projects information shared on the internet with this recording.
Good point.
And so other things, I guess, more administrative things for the round. We have to make all the process to close the program, which is going to be me sending the data to Gitcoin to make the analysis, then working with YGG and Rex to do the boost. At the same time, we buy the TC with the DAI we have. We make a quick check just to make sure all addresses are in Gnosis chain as well, and we distribute the funds. That's pretty much how it's going to look like. Then a bit of communications, sending emails to recipients and whatnot. And with that, we would officially close this round, and probably, and this we'll see later, but probably just see how do we start with the next one, because there's a chance, or maybe we just want to do some or try to do some fundraising in advance, which is going to take time. So we'll see. We'll see. Before I jump on to the next topic, anything else about the grants round too? Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I wanted to share one thing that's encouraging, which is that when you look at the Web3 communities and education round that we participated in, which is a 250K round, actually we did pretty well. Compared to the past, we were number 27 out of 238 projects. So, and we got 131 votes. So that's encouraging. That means that we are able to raise funds, and I think that once we start helping people to understand that, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect with the TEC, which is like, wait, you got all this money, like, why do you need money? But I think once we help people to understand that this is key, like replenishing the commons is very important to continue to be able to continue to fund this work. I think that there's some hope here for being able to do some fundraising as a community. So that's good. That's good news.
Yeah, I agree. But okay, if there's not anything else, I'll move on to the next topic, which is the community calls. So we've been chatting about this for quite a while. Tried to timing was tight. We tried to plug the fireside chat as the first community call. We ended up just having it as a I don't know, a regular event in the scope of the grants program. But now it's just about time um, to get our first community call going. And I chatted with YGG to have him be the first guest on our community call. Uh, this name is a placeholder right now, but it's the topic is just diving deep into quadratic funding and our tool and the SME bulls and all that. I think that can be um, and I think this is a great starter for two reasons. First of all, we have to remember that one of the purpose of the community call is keeping ourselves accountable to the whole community. Um, so that's very important. And then um, on the other hand, we with with the QF tool being the topic for the first community call, we are keeping ourselves even more accountable, like showing what are we working on and possibly and hopefully getting even real feedback from a wider set of folks. Um, so far, um, we chatted about having it on September 20, which is, let me just check quickly, which is Wednesday. So Wednesday, 2 p.m. EST. Um, and the idea would be that we do community calls on the same time as well, all months. So we would have the community call from now on be the 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 third Wednesday of every month. Um, um, yeah, I guess I'll pause here. We have to nail down some details, and I wondered if you, Nate, would be up to sort of take on the community call with your expertise in events. We can talk more about that later. But in general, that's how that's how it's running. I'll just open it now to any comments.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just think it's a really good initiative. I think it would be interesting to, now that we start to think about the next coming months and the next proposal and the next priorities. I think it would be cool to really try to link all the initiatives, and in this case all the events that we have, into kind of like the same narrative or the same storytelling throughout these coming months. So yeah, this idea of the token engineering as public goods, that was something that I really resonated with, and I think this community call and whatever format we end up giving to it, I think we should probably try to focus it towards that. I don't know exactly how, but just trying to bring this idea of having this cohesion between all the events that we do, so they feel more connected from one another, and we're able to start building certain certain flow on the type of events we host. So yeah, so we don't have it just like an isolated event that is not connected to anything else, right? Just trying to build on that.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I think this token engineering as public goods is such a good frame for us because, well, for so many reasons, it echoes, our history, it echoes personal passions of the people here, but it's also strategic in the sense that it's helping the token engineering community connect with the bigger public goods community, and I think that's our path to finding sustainable funding for token engineering and and becoming a regranting entity. So I think the more that we can echo that, I think the better. And then the second thing I want to just add is that it would be good if we can leave like maybe 10 or 15 minutes of that call to just highlight some of the process that we will likely be going through at that point in terms of strategic planning and mission work, because we're going to be kicking off an initiative on that over the next couple months. So I think that's probably a good place to just orient people on like what the steps are.
And so we're wanting to bring this back into our Discord. Is that correct?
I think, Nate, that this is something that would be really good for you to just question. Like I think we ran into there's pluses to using spaces and there's negatives. And also, there's Discord, there's also Zoom, and as we think about like event production going forward, I think that what we saw from the spaces is that, man, the number of people that were watching that afterwards appears to have been way greater than the people who were watching it live. So I think we just need to think about like how we're constructing these community calls, and if we're doing them in ways that are not just like updates of like here's like the past community calls we did, but these are like more designed to be also educational and informative, then I think that the production value of them and like being able to get a nice recording is important. So I just throw that out. I don't have an answer.
No, I feel the same way. I thought that was a really good format. I just didn't know if we had any objectives in terms of growing our Discord once again and like having kind of alternative events or anything like that we want to, if there's any tangible objective that we want to have in terms of like growing our community within Discord or growing our community elsewhere.
Can I throw out a data point? For me, the optimal the optimal experience that I can see would be to do the call in Discord and then also have it streamed on Twitter Spaces or x.com Spaces. But totally, depending on what our objectives are, I think that's a great last point you just made there, Nate. But for me, Discord has a nice kind of casual experience to it. And I think it's a great way to grow a community. It feels more public because people can just tune in. I really like to think of programming, like television programming, in relation to Discord, like voice channels as kind of media real estate. It's like what is being filled in the voice channel of a Discord server. It's kind of like this television component. I find it super fascinating, the programming in a Discord server. And I think there's pros and cons to all of this. I'll throw out one more for me. For some reason, the last 6 weeks or so, I haven't been able to screen share on Zoom. I use a particular operating system. I use Linux, Pop! OS, a distribution on Ubuntu, and the Wayland desktop client. And so somewhere in that stack and some update with Zoom, I haven't been able to screen share on there for the past 6 weeks or so. So a bit of dynamism is required as well. Some different events are going to have different requirements.
Yeah, and I will say my experience with Zoom, while it's not a bad platform because the people who do attend it are very intentional, and so you have a really good crowd in terms of
Yeah.
people who are focused. But it's very friction, high friction in terms of people just wanting to casually join, and so that's my only big concern with the Zoom.
I feel the same way.
I mean, um, this is very low frequency, like it's just once a month. And at our stage, we just have to keep our minds open and learn every time we do one community call, like make a small retrospective, like we do with almost everything. Um, Maybe we just roll it this first one on Discord and maybe the next one on Zoom and we just compare and maybe the third one on another place and we learn till we find the optimal way to make this and um yeah right now there are like right now I think at least in my opinion those are minor details. We probably have to think more of you know defining the objectives, and then we'll see which platform, which setup, which arrangement, how many time for the guest, how many guests, whatever is the best one to meet our objectives with the community call. That's probably something we can define um, even as a task for these upcoming sprint. Like have come up with a small document, maybe even half a page or just one page of similar to what I did with this here. Oops, documents. Like the plan was, it's pretty easy, pretty small, just some specifications and targets for the rounds. Maybe we just do that for the calls for the events as a way to just guide our decisions.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that I agree with this. I think probably one of the greatest priorities for this, I think not just for the community call, but for any type of community events we plan to host, would be to set clear objectives, and just having them written down somewhere so that everything that we decide it's aligned to that. Having said that, I don't think we probably be in a position of looking, for example, as an objective to have more engagement in our Discord server. I think we shouldn't take that as an objective, at least for now. But yeah, for sure, accountability probably should be one. But what else, right? I think this is a probably really good exercise to try to take on in the coming weeks.
Yep. Anything else about the community call? I guess I'll probably more than anything just probably chat with you, Nate, to work on the details. What would be nice from the rest of the team is just to make sure that this is a good time for everyone, so that at the bare minimum, this team is on the call. But we can see that later as well. We don't have to do that now on the call.
That sounds good. I can also put together kind of a proposed format for how I think a community call might look like, and we can all put some feedback on it.
Nice, thanks. That'd be nice. All right. Now we can move on to the next topic, which is the funding proposal that we have to submit fairly soon. And I'll pass it to I believe that's you, Bear, to take a note. Or I don't know if Gideon is going to talk about the funding proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I've already shared the proposal with Gideon, with Nate, and with you, Isaac. Kind of like I've just listed here again, on the type of work priorities that we will be taking on. They are just basically 5. And there are other 4 type of initiatives that I'm trying to frame them more as support, because it's kind of like supporting the stakeholder studies, supporting the advisory network, supporting the OP migration, so maybe kind of like common stack, supporting YGG with the QF tooling work. So this would be kind of like not kind of like our main priorities or work priorities as a team, but as the support we can provide to them. So I guess I would kind of like just open the floor to see if there are any questions in regards to these type of priorities that we would, if they seem achievable, if they seem that we will have enough time to work on them. Yeah, and then we have more this question about the team structure. That's kind of like, I feel the item where we're a bit more behind on, kind of like trying to redefine the roles of that each of us will be taking. I'm not sure if we would have enough time to talk about it here, but maybe we can try. And then that's it. I think this could also kind of like help to start aligning the priorities for even next sprint already, because like we're already starting September, right? So September is already considered as part of the proposal. So probably this can also serve us as some time, or as some guidance to organize. Yeah, so I might just like open the floor right now to see if there are any questions. I'm still working on it. I'm already kind of like drafting it out, like properly writing it. So I'm hoping to have pretty soon in these days something that I can share with everyone to get some more feedback. And yeah, that's kind of like the idea. So I'll open the floor now.
I think it's a really good point that this proposal actually starts in September. So I didn't even think about that, but we actually do have to get going on actually executing parts of what we're describing here, even before it's passed. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we totally can, and we were totally gonna do it. Anyhow, I think the grant round, or closing this last grant round, and maybe start to planning on the third one. That's probably some things that we should probably get going, as well as the events, right? Like with the community call. I think that community call should probably fall under this kind of like bigger umbrella of a project of community events, TEC as public goods. So yeah, I think there's already work that can be done there, even with the other items. I think there's a lot of progress that we can start doing. So we also don't. So we're also not like going through September without really knowing what to do or how to focus. So yeah. Anything else? Yeah, if there's nothing else, I think we can continue this conversation async. I totally will, by sharing this ongoing document with the progress that I get on. Maybe we could try to talk more about the team structure a bit. I've been rethinking and reviewing the different roles that we have, and the people in the team, and with this situation with Joseph and Marathon Mind being a little bit less active now, and how does that affect the team and the different responsibilities that we have? YGG plugging in. So all of these have been different factors that we need to consider, right? And also based on the priorities, how does that reflect on the actual responsibilities of the roles we have? So I've been kind of like getting close to a possible solution. I've already shared this with Gideon, with Isaac, but I don't think YGG and Nate have been able to do it. But basically, the idea is just to simplify things a bit more. To have less roles, to have these roles concentrated in a more particular area or department. At the end of the day, having just 4 different areas that I'm seeing would be kind of like the biggest priorities for the team. One of them being, we're trying to call them programs. So kind of like, in a way, running and managing all the different programs that we could possibly have. Right now, it's just the grants program, but maybe it has also something to do with the incubation program and kind of like these projects that provide value. Then we have this other area of communications and community organizing, something Gideon has been taking the lead on, and it's basically that, so some marketing, some community organizing, some community events organizing, all of this idea of maybe producing the recordings, the videos, the way we greet into the Discord. So I try to merge kind of like the whole communication side with the community organizing roles that we already had, and just merge them into one single area that it's easier to navigate and to also be responsible of. Sorry. And then we also have the contributor coordination area, kind of like trying to frame it as quote unquote human resources in a way, but not exactly like that. That is basically the work that I've been doing in coordinating kind of like us as a team, with compensation structure, with accountability, with the roles, with kind of like this work that I've been doing on how we organize as individuals in a team. And same thing, thinking a bit more about how can we still involve others, newcomers that could come here and kind of like continue defining those type of opportunities for people plugging in. And then we have the last one that it's the kind of like financial controls, financial reporting, budgeting, also a bit on the work that I've been doing. So those are kind of like the 4 main areas that the team would be kind of like focusing on. And then we would have one 5th one that we used to have it as part of the team, and that Gideon was mainly carrying that responsibility of a strategic planning. So after having different chats with Gideon, with the advisory network, it was decided that probably the best decision was to move this whole area of strategic planning and governance to the advisory group itself, and move it out of the coordination team. That way, that other group can carry that workload of driving and driving the direction and the strategy of the whole TEC, of the whole commons, and then based on whatever decisions are made there, that can be informed to the coordination team for its execution. So in this model, the coordination team now it's able to fully focus in executing, and then we have the responsibility of defining the strategy and the direction of the whole TEC to the advisory network. That this doesn't mean that they will kind of like be kind of like board deciding everything. This is something that Tam has been working more on, and Levy, Gideon, and I will also continue to be working on. But basically, the idea is to involve the community in this kind of like participatory process of decision making in terms of the strategy and the direction of the DAO. So that process is going to be happening like with that group and with the community, to then inform whatever priorities, whatever work the coordination team should be doing. So the idea, for example, would be that for the next funding proposal, all of these priorities are set and defined by the advisory group, and of course with the input of the community, and then just informed to the coordination team. That way, I think in a way responsibilities are more distributed, more decentralized, and it kind of like makes more sense to have this group with a specific type of expertise carrying on the responsibility of the strategy, rather than just having us that we're kind of like just a bit internally focused, and also not leaving it also in one single person, like Gideon at some point. So that's kind of like the model that we've been working on and that I'm suggesting. I'm gonna stop right there to see if it makes sense, kind of like this first part, and then maybe we can talk a bit more about how does this affect or change us in an individual matter. So yeah, I'll just open the floor.
Is there any way you can link like a working doc for this, or?
Yeah, so the link for the funding proposal, it's on the Notion. In that same document, I'm planning to have this structure that I'm talking about laid out there. But as it has been on the kind of like work in progress status, by having chats with different people, I haven't still included it there. But that's on my plan to do it as soon as I have something more concrete. But yeah, is there like any particular question, Nate? Any concerns that you, or first impressions that you might have? Does it make sense?
I guess it's just the details of the advisory network and the interactions between the two, and kind of defining the boundaries and roles between each group. Yeah, I guess that's my biggest question.
Yeah, that's a great point, and actually that process, it's kind of like driven more by the advisory group itself. So I know Tam is working on an actual document where she explains and states the purpose and the responsibilities of this advisory network. So that's going to be kind of like one component that Tam probably will be able to share more about when she's back from vacations. Then we have this other component that is the kind of like community-driven process for defining strategy and direction. That's more driven by Gideon, Livia, and I'll also be working on that. That's kind of like the second component. And then we have the third component, that it's the structure of the coordination team. So yeah, I do agree that we probably need more clarification and a bit more explanation on the dynamics between these groups and how does this look like, right? But I hope that at least on a higher level, I was able to provide certain explanation to that.
There's one thing I'd like to speak to, because I've been part of those meetings with the sort of prototype of this advisory network. And one part of Tamara's proposal is that how to join the advisory network. And so what we want to do is create a sort of application portal so that it's, we have a sort of type form type of thing where anyone can submit and say, hey, I'm interested in being a part of the advisory network, and then building process around, what the next step is from there. But yeah, this is something Tamara is actively working on.
I'll add one other thing on top of that, because I think, I've mentioned this in the past a few times, but I think it's worth repeating. To me, as I'm thinking about like our marketing and communications going forward, the TEC is definitely going through a transition right now, where we were kind of like in the early phases, it had a constituency that seemed more kind of like trusted seed, like, you know, more like regen and that kind of focus. And I think we'll still keep that base for sure. And in addition, one of the things that we are actively trying to do, and I think that the Gitcoin grants round and a number of other things are helping us to do, is welcome in the actual token engineering community. And I think, you know, we've kind of had some success in that in the past, but then that's kind of gone away, and it's like been very, it just hasn't been the core, right, of who have shown up here. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do with this advisory network, is help to catalyze that movement into bringing the field into the commons.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, you know, and I think to add on to that, I would say that also the other pretty interesting avenue is the stakeholder study, right? I think there's been a lot of really interesting insights, a lot of connection with actual token engineers on that side, and I'm pretty sure this is going to continue to evolve in other type of initiatives from that group, and that maybe also involves the coordination team, the advisory network, and you know, I do feel and hope that all of these initiatives, with the pass of time, will start connecting with each other even more, right? So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, I don't know, in regards with the actual funding proposal, I don't know if there's any other questions or comments. If not, I might just like hand it back to you, Isaac, and we can continue.
Cool. Thanks. All right. Well, we have just about 10 minutes. Well, technically we have 2 hours booked, but for this team meeting, we usually just take the first full hour. I wanted to have a moment to chat about or do like a pre-planning session, and this may take somewhere around 15-20 minutes. So, well, if anyone has to jump in at the top of the hour, that's fine. But if possible, let's try to just, do this. And pretty much the goal or the idea is that, well, now that the grants round is pretty much over, there's just a few leftover tasks that we have to complete. We don't really have like as clear as a goal for this upcoming sprint as we had on all these sprints with the grants round. So for everyone to be able to prepare their planning and come up with something, we may as well just have a second to chat about what do we want to accomplish on this upcoming sprint. In my opinion, or at least how I'm seeing it, this upcoming sprint is like a two-sided. Like on one side is will be like a retrospective for the grants round and preparation for the next one. So like maybe writing a small document with learnings from this second round, completing like the run book so that on the next round we can make all the quicker. Also looking at timelines, when more or less are we going to do the next round, in which setup are we going to fundraise? If so, we need to add some more time of pre-planning to reach out to sponsors, yada yada yada. And then there's other work we have had on our plate for some time, like a bit of the community work on one hand, and doing the community call things, and maybe there's other events we want to prepare. There's also the conviction voting analysis that we owe to the community. There's quite a few things. I guess now I'll just open the floor and see how everyone feels about it.
Well, I'll throw out a couple things. One for sure is this strategy process that we're going to be going through. That's going to take some work. Bear and I are, at least on the coordination team, we're kind of taking the lead on that, like what that process looks like, and working with Libby. The other thing that I think would be really good to have somebody on the coordination team be like the primary point of contact on is the OP migration. Tam is project managing that on the common stack side, and but I think that there's going to be, I mean, we don't quite know what is going to be entailed and what's going to be required for us to actually make this migration, but I have a feeling it's going to be a lot more complicated than what we're even imagining. And so just the logistics of like moving people off of Gnosis and onto OP, and like what that means for people's tokens and all the questions. And I mean, there's probably going to be a lot of logistical stuff that's going to happen as a result of this. So yeah, I think it would be good to pretty early on, once I think Tam is back next week, to start to have some type of sync on like what that looks like and put together a plan.
Yeah, yeah. On my side, yeah, I would agree with everything that has been said. Like, closing and kind of like doing some reflections on this last round. Start to plan on the next round. Planning and scoping. I think that's part of the task, right? Like kind of like scoping the next round, and also the community events. That I feel that it might be worth to start talking about these community events, TE as public goods, as a project itself, with different type of work within it, including the community call and like it was mentioned, maybe some other type of events that we can start thinking on. So I see these two, and also the making sure we're available to provide whatever support we need, right? To either the OP migration, the work that with the CV analysis, or the work that YGG will continue to do, and the strategy and decision making process, and also the stakeholder study. I feel that actually there's probably not much time, or there's no time to waste, right? I feel that maybe in the coming months more work is going to start to be going on. The study, I think it was said to be released in September, if I'm correct. So yeah, it might be getting busier. So yeah, I think it's probably a good idea to start scoping and planning and a bit more on each of these different priorities. That'd be my take.
Hey guys, I would love to add a couple comments. First of all, for myself, I feel very high capacity to do things like modeling, something like the community call as well. I'm really excited for that, to continue working on QF. I could even open up CV analysis in September. For me, I feel like a balanced plate is like 3 weeks of work on QF research and the QF app, and supporting the coordination team with everything QF, and 1 week in September to do work on considering CV analysis and opening that up and thinking about first steps. So that's kind of my data science perspective. I feel like I have a lot of capacity in September, and I would love for the team to feel like they can lean on me. Anything you want related to data science, please reach out. And Nate's reached out to me about the community call. I'm excited to collaborate on that. Another point I want to put out there that I think is really important, Gideon and Bear kind of mentioned the concept of higher level strategy and the advisory network. I think I want to put forward a proposal. I think it's important to get Jessica Zartler operating at that strategy level, because she's got a really high capacity and a lot of like ambition or drive around it. And everyone else is working on other things. Like Gideon is really the high highest level at the coordination team. Like Gideon's really busy with coordination and quadratic funding and a great leader in this coordination team, but it takes a lot of time. And Livy's doing the stakeholder study full time. She's trying to put out the report. And Tamara is working at the Common Stack on the productization of migrating TEC over to OP, which is a huge project. So, and then there's Bear, who's like working on a lot of fronts and taking care of a lot of things, and I think would synergize with Jessica really well. And she's coming fresh out of working for Block Science for the last 2.5 years or so. So she is so integrated into TE and the whole industry and the whole space. She's got a really good relationship with Angela at the Academy. So I think that's important to seize some opportunity. I got to see Jessica work at the TEC in the first, say, 3 months of its existence, and the way she was able to mobilize capacity around her and inspire people. She had, 20 people volunteering at the TEC in the first month that she was there, and I'm really excited for that kind of collaboration. So I want to put that out there to the group. It's a step into industry. I think any opportunity we get to work with people like Zargum or Danilo, these kinds of people coming from Block Science, this is such a rich opportunity. People coming out of industry wanting to sort of volunteer their time at the TEC, I think is really precious.
Yeah. I think it's really important. The awkward thing right now is just we're kind of, because Tam is away and she's driving the advice network. We wanted to give her a chance to just pull that together. But maybe what I'll do, YGG, I don't know what you think about this. I was thinking last week of just dropping Jess a note and I don't want her to feel like we're ignoring her or anything like that. But at the same time, I want to kind of like allow Tam the time to actually pull together the thing that she's pulling together with the network. But
I think maybe what we could do is give Jessica a shot, because Tam did get a sort of a template together. She got that template, and that might be a good starter kit to have a conversation with Jessica in the context of that.
You mean with the document that she pulled together?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is also just talking about what we were talking about last week is, this was the other thing I was going to throw out, is I think it's important for the TEC right now to be thinking about this whole incubation idea. One thing that we're learning from Gitcoin is that it was actually very successful for raising awareness of token engineering. If you look at we had like a 21x increase in unique contributors. Like, that's phenomenal. Like, that's like insane. And so it's really good at doing that, of like building awareness for token engineering. And even just at that level, it's good to continue doing that, I think. But in terms of actual funds that it raised for the individual projects, I think we all know that this is not the way to raise a lot of money for projects. And so it's a good signal for helping us to figure out where excitement is. But I think it's really important for us to start thinking about like what the second stage of funding is for projects that look very promising. And I think it's very important for the credibility of the TEC to have an answer there. And so I think that's one of the things I'm particularly interested in talking to Jess about, is like getting her thoughts on that, what that could look like, and particularly with the Bonica Research Group. But it doesn't have to be that. I do think, and YGG, I think this is another thing for you too, in terms of like where your energy could really help, is just helping us to kind of do the like analysis and figuring out what that might look like, whether it's a bonding curve, helping groups to launch a bonding curve, or I don't know what it is, but I think that's part of the thing we got to start figuring out too.
Yeah, something I like to do these little projects that I get inspired on a Friday night, and I'll code for 6 hours, and I can pump out a model. Like that's what I mean by high capacity. If I'm really aligned in the TEC, I can work on main projects like QF, but I can pump out a lot of kind of side things. So I've got a little feedback loop diagrammed in my notebook here that is QF, the TEC as a regranter, and then what that's going to mean for the TEC token. So and it's incorporating the bonding curve model, right? So it's like I want to make this little case study of here's what it looks like to pump a bonding curve. And when I say pump, I don't mean like pump and dump. I mean I mean velocity. It's like lots of people are minting and burning on the curve, which means there's tributes going to the common pool. I think we can refibrillate, or like bring back to life the common pool. We can get some blood into the common pool by having velocity on the TEC bonding curve. And I think there's a few interesting ways to do that. One is the OP migration, and another is if, depending on how we look at QF, TEC as a regranter on QF, that might be a way of pumping the bonding curve. And yeah, the incubator program I find super interesting. That's like a high level strategy that I definitely enjoy being in touch with and having inputs on that as we go. I know something, a big thing, I don't know if this is directly related, but I was just writing some notes about it. This concept of apprenticeship, I think, is really good to bake into our strategy. And the higher level reputation economy concept of the TEC, and how the academy plugs that into that, and how TEC token holders plug into that, and how we can also just have smoother connections between the TEC, the TE community, the TE academy, and TE industry, and how we can track the bodies and the projects that are moving through that space. We can track TE projects. We can track TE talent. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of rich blockchain data from QF as well. We get to see who all these donors are. We get to see the addresses of the grants and where that funding is going. And ultimately, we can track funding as well because it's all on chain. And it's great that we're using Optimism. One concept I want to put out there is like, maybe projects need more funding. What if there were fewer projects? What if the coordination team screening was more rigorous? And maybe we even have limited slots. Maybe we say we only have 5 projects per round, something like that. Maybe 10 projects per round. That's one way to actually get more funds. Because if we have a fixed matching pool but less projects, then there's more to be matched for those projects. That might be an interesting thing to consider. And alternatively is really playing with the SME signal boost concept and thinking about who are these SMEs, where is that signal going, and is that a way to, like, if we really turn that up, and it's like we need to think about who are the SMEs, because probably everyone in this call is an SME. Technically, having 10 TEC tokens qualifies you as an SME. So we can think deeper and deeper about that. And I do want to zoom, that's kind of my intention for this week, is to take a pause on the QF analysis and bring it to the team and get lots of feedback on where it can go. So I'm going to be booking some one-on-ones with people in this call throughout the week. I kind of just ranted on about 3 topics, so I'll pause there. I apologize for the rant. But yeah, incubation process, apprenticeship, and the QF. Really think about QF, how it can be tuned, and TEC as a regranter.
That's very interesting, and actually, that's something I don't remember if I mentioned that, but I've always wanted to do some analysis on how things affect the bonding curve. I guess initially I was my the first piece of analysis I wanted to get done somehow was on the relationship between secondary market liquidity and tributes. So like the more liquid the TC token is on Honeyswap, the more it follows the price of Ether or Giveth or whatever token it's there with, which means it gets more volatility, which probably means it gets more arbitrage between markets, which means it probably is more attributes. That's one. And now with the QF, it totally makes sense to see how really the QF affects the curve. And I guess like I was looking very quickly at the analytics. There's a few bumps on the price around the rounds. Um, the biggest one is of course us buying TC tokens to distribute them, but there's definitely some movement, which is good. We just probably have to, like you said, just do some proper analysis on it. Um, um, and yeah, like just having these conversations, we are not being like super detailed about what we need to get done this sprint, but there's already quite a few buckets of things people here on the call can think of and see how they can plug best for this upcoming sprint. Um, Probably this sprint we can frame as a planning sprint for the last quarter of the year, I guess, more or less. So like we would probably have to think of, for example, um, most of the tasks on this sprint should be around presenting plans, presenting projects in the sense of like, for example, Nate presenting a document on the structure and whatnot of community calls. Someone presenting um, some form of document on the OP migration, like how do we want to plug in, which sense, in which way. Uh, I'm probably presenting something about the grants round and me and YTG, mostly YTG, can present something on analysis like um, which things, how many things he can take on for the last, I don't know, for the next few X time, say weeks, months, whatever. And then for the following sprint, the one next to the, so we are in, I think we are in sprint. Let me just check them. How it lost. We're in sprint 9, so we are talking about what are we going to do in sprint 10. And so in sprint 11, we should start working on actually whatever we presented and planned on the sprint 10. I think that makes a bit of sense. Um, um, Maybe to close or something, I would like to see if anyone um, feels lost or would like to get something more concrete about what they can do on the next week, on next sprint, so that we are all prepared on the planning next Tuesday. Or any other comment is also fine, but I just want to make sure we have all something in mind to work on for the next planning.
I think that we've got folks on each of these except the OP migration. I guess maybe that's one question is, if are there folks on the call who are particularly interested in this OP migration?
I'm very interested.
I am as well, I guess.
I am interested as well.
Well, I was going to talk about capacity. Can probably just take on some work. I guess for the OP migration is a bit tricky because I at least know how, like, we of course have to support it. I just don't know how much time or what kind of support is required. So I guess depending on that, my involvement or like the time I can put into it. It depends.
Seems like we just need a touch point with Common Stack and making sure that we have set plans and making sure that we're covering all of our bases in terms of representing the TE community and stakeholders, especially token holders, as we make this transition. Right? Is that my understanding, Gideon?
I really don't know. I mean, my gut says that a lot of our role is going to be about communicating with the token holders in the community. Coordination of the community rather than the actual lifting of the project itself. We're not doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
I'm personally, I'm interested in sort of the planning phase of the migration. Like there's a small chance, there's a small window to change a few things. So I'm interested in just being a part of that process. About communicating, I'm happy to give a hand. I'm just not that keen into doing in communication work in general. If I have to, I'm happy to, but I'm not really used to. So
Yeah, Nate, I don't know, because you've done a lot of work in the past around documentation, and you are a clear writer. This is one of the things that's going to be most necessary is just clarity. The other thing, my interest in the OP migration is looking at what kind of opportunities that opens up for us. Opportunities in terms of like making the purchase process, like minting TEC. How do we just make that like 5x simpler than it is today? Like just really thinking about what that actually looks like. I think that's going to be so important to our future, and we have a window for like now is the time to be thinking about that.
Yeah, and in terms of having this discussion of strategy and approach towards things, because like from my perspective, what I've been looking at from the bonding curve, our use on Gnosis is that it would really be beneficial to have a really healthy secondary market and kind of abstract the bonding curve away from actual individuals. And so, and just have the TEC mint and burn based off of arbitrage opportunities and just keep it in-house. But I don't know if these like types of strategy decisions are being discussed in a particular location or area or amongst a specific group. But I do think that these types of ideas and design approaches need to have kind of their day in court, because I think there are a lot of learnings that we've had with this current bonding curve that need to be discussed. And I do think that there's, kind of an optimal approach that we can take in terms of the development of it, and not because migrating, we still have the same challenges, and I'll keep saying this. We still have the same problems that we have with our ABC on this chain. Is they don't disappear just because we moved to optimism. And so I think that these are some of the things that we have to acknowledge and to have a discussion around. And I'm not sure if there's a space for that type of discussion, or if we should create a space, or what can happen in that way.
I'm happy that we're talking about this here and now. I feel a bit differently. I think what we should do is remove the default page when you go to convert.tecommons.org. That default page is so complex, and I always click on the simple page right away. So I think we should make the simple page the default. I really enjoy it. I think it's beautiful. I mint and burn on the curve quite often, and I find it a really smooth experience. And then I unwrap wrapped XDAI on OneHive, which I find it a smooth experience. There's a learning curve to this, yes, but once you're really playing the game, it's really smooth, and the UI is quite nice. I like unwrapping on OneHive, and then I bridge my XDAI to Polygon, and then from Polygon I can get anywhere. I can sort of withdraw funds, or I can get to mainnet, but Yeah, I want to have more conversations like this. I would love to give people tours of minting and burning on the curve. Like, I find it so fun. It's like playing a board game. But I think we should remove the default page on convert.tecommons.org. Or make that not the default. Make the simple one the default. And then also have a liquid secondary market. And yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, yeah. So I think before I really got started, back in the TEC about a month ago or 2 months ago, I was really ready to promote plug into DeFi, plug into the Curve or Balancer ecosystems. But after really getting oriented with QF, I'm like, oh, that is kind of our DeFi. That's like DeFi of public goods. That's like high volume public goods. It's nice plugging into QF, but yeah, if we could ultimately have a very liquid secondary market, that's very appealing. But my vision is to get everyone minting on the curve, like, or burning. If TEC can raise funds in, say, ETH, and then mint TEC on the curve, distribute that TEC, and then projects are burning their TEC to fund their projects, that's like this pump on the curve. And it's not necessarily about the TEC token price going up, but the more volume there is on the curve. And you're right, Nate, that could very well be arbitrage volume if the secondary market was very liquid. But I think I personally enjoy the user experience of the convert on the curve more than the user experience of, say, going to HoneySwap.
Yeah, I think there are merits on all sides of it. I just I would really like to see if we had a kind of a communication because of this OP migration. I think it's going to be really important that we have a place to discuss these topics in terms of both the common stack, the T advisory network, and the TEC to actually kind of break this down a little bit so we have a clear roadmap in front of us to make sure that we're going to try this out, we're going to test this out, we're going to optimize for the most generating the most funds through the common pool, and that's the intent of it. And I know there's more to it than that, but I just think having a place to start off this conversation is going to be vitally important before we start the migration process.
There's one little thought experiment Rex and I did. So Uniswap before is coming up, and they have hooks, and with the hooks you can pretty much call external smart contracts or whatever. And something we thought that'd be pretty cool is to have a hook that calls the ABC. So technically, you would be able to. I don't know if this is really doable, but you should be able to go to Uniswap, to the Uniswap front end, and just trade TEC. And if the pool doesn't have enough liquidity, or if the price change is bigger than X, it can call the ABC and make the trade through the ABC instead of through the liquidity pool. So that'd be sort of a way to have like an infinite liquidity pool on Uniswap, which is pretty cool. But I don't know, that's another conversation. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess here's what I would say is that we have a little bit of a window, and we're not going to have this window again for a long time. Moving chains is a huge deal. So, I just think that, if like having to wrap stuff and I think it would be really important for us to just look at each of the steps and really look at where can we simplify things? How can we make this just so that it's so much easier? So that, could we, what would it take to be able to allow people to give very easily in Gitcoin, right? And give using TEC. I think it would be really helpful to have these visions of like where we want to actually be at some point, in terms of being able to, to easily buy TEC and then be able to interact in places like Gitcoin. It's just, now's the time to think big about some of these things and see whether or where we can actually push things so that this becomes much easier to buy off the bonding curve or off of, secondary markets. And I guess that's the second thing I'll say is, I don't think we have any idea really what our strategy should be. Like right now, so far to date, we've like earned about 300,000 DAI off of tributes, which is pretty amazing actually. That's like our main way of generating income for the TEC right now. But we don't really know what the relationship is between our bonding curve and the secondary markets. Like, how is that affecting it? How is the arbitrage actually working? Is that something that we want to actively push? Like, there's lots of reasons to try to get that extra liquidity, but does it take away from our ability to generate tributes? And what does that relationship look like? I don't understand that. I don't know if other people at this point, but we haven't done the analysis.
So right now, after hearing all of this, I'm just wondering if, like Nate was saying, where is the right place to have this type of conversations? I'm wondering if Tam, as the project manager of this project, it's considering kind of like this to have this group involved in those type of conversations, or I feel that probably there's some more clarity needs to happen between the expectations of the project on the common stack side, and how is that going to involve the coordination team and the TEC and the advisory network. So I would probably say that maybe one of the best things we could do is to try to define a person here in the coordination team that is that touch point, and then to have that person just reach out to Tam and have a conversation about how to organize and facilitate this process of conversations and feedback to open it up to everyone that it's interested. Because it seems a bit unclear to me right now how would we move forward with this without having Tam's input.
If I may jump in, it sounds to me what I see here is we should have a TEC token working group. I think that would make a lot of sense to have a working group very similar to the coordination team, but a team at TEC that is focused on the TEC token, say as a product or as a token utility, token engineering, token protocol, token product, the TEC token working group. Because what is QF funding? It has a lot to do with our token. The fact that we're distributing funds in TEC is it's central to our token. It's really a token operation. And what was conviction voting, it was very much attached to the token and the common pool. It's all token infrastructure, and the bonding curve is token infrastructure. So I think a TEC team that really focuses on the TEC infrastructure and the TEC token would be great. Now, from what perspective we can consider, like a product perspective or a technology perspective, a user experience perspective, industry, or higher level strategy for TEC. But yeah, I want to put that out there for people to consider. I think that would be really exciting to have.
Yeah, I agree, and I actually think a lot of the work you are doing or we are planning to have you doing has to do with this thing of just taking care of the TC as a protocol, because at the end of the day we have a protocol. This is a protocol for an engineering discipline, and we need to have some some form of engineer take care of the protocol, which is what we preach, right? Just having engineers behind cryptoeconomic protocols to make sure they are resilient, sustainable, and whatnot. But well, I have to go. In 4 minutes. So I guess just to wrap up, um, we have more or less a bunch of things to work on. I hope everyone now after this conversation, and I actually like this conversation. This is probably going to be like a fixed topic on every team meeting. Every on the Tuesdays we don't have planning. This is probably going to be a fixed topic. I think it does us good. There's quite a few things. Please just think a bit more about it and try to come up with a few tasks to work on it. Possibly, if even just message or be communicate what you want to work on, so that you don't we don't step into others' feet. Like for example, for me, I'm probably working on QF stuff, and yeah, I think it's pretty much QF stuff for me right now. The OP migration, I think at least till we have time here, it doesn't make a lot of sense to invest a lot. I'm definitely interested, but for taking on actual work with regards to the OP migration, it's probably best to wait for time. But yeah. And I guess the usual, if anyone needs any help or whatever to plan something or get anything done, just let me know. And I'm happy to provide any kind of support. Okay, well, I think that's all then. I'm pretty happy with today's session. Again, remember to just update the status on tasks and come prepared to the next sprint planning.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Isaac.
Thanks, everybody.
But
Thanks,
see you
everyone.
guys. Take care.
See you
Thank
soon.
you, everyone.
Bye.